One of the great debates that occurs every year in the lead up to the NFL draft, at the NFL draft itself, and especially in the aftermath post NFL draft, is whether or not rookie quarterbacks, and in particular rookie quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round by their teams, should sit or start in their first year in the National Football League. This maybe is one of those philosophical differences of you think that a guy coming from college can't possibly be prepared for the NFL game, the NFL speed, the NFL schemes, the NFL defenses. And as a result, they need that time to sit, watch, learn, study the playbook, and learn things that way, and eventually graduate to becoming an NFL starter. Then you have that school of thought that sits there and says, no, no, no. Sometimes the best way to find out what a guy has or doesn't have is to throw him out there on a trial by fire. You drafted this guy there for a reason. Chances are he's better than anybody else on your roster at that position. So you'd be doing yourself a disservice both short term and long term if you didn't play the rookie quarterback. And here again with the 2014 NFL draft, you have three quarterbacks that went in round number one that I'm going to focus on here. Even though I could kind of lump Derek Carr into this, I will throw him out of here for now. And you have Blake Bortles, who went number 3 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Johnny Manziel, who went number 22 to the Cleveland Browns, and Teddy Bridgewater, who went number 32 to the Minnesota Vikings. These are three teams that clearly needed help at the quarterback position. These are three teams that clearly needed to address the quarterback position early in the 2014 NFL draft. Part of the reason they found themselves where they were in the NFL draft is because of the failures at the quarterback position for that organization in recent years. But now, as these guys have been drafted, you hear Jacksonville talking about their plan is to sit Blake Bortles for all of 2014 behind Chad Henne. Johnny Manziel is going to have to compete, and right now he's number 3 on the depth chart, and Brian Hoyer will be the starter, at least heading into camp. Teddy Bridgewater will be behind both Matt Castle and Christian Ponder and be 3rd at the depth chart to start heading into training camp. So, now the debate's going to come from media members, from the fan base, of whether or not it's the right thing to do to sit these guys right away or start these guys right away. And if you want to look at this from a historical perspective, I don't think there's necessarily a clear-cut answer of yes or no. And here's what I mean. Here are a couple of guys that became big-time NFL starting quarterbacks, franchise quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks that sat for the rookie seasons, and in fact sat for more than one season. Phillip Rivers, the number 4 overall selection in the 2004 NFL draft, who the Chargers ended up acquiring his draft rights, they sat him in 2004 and 2005 behind former second-round pick Drew Brees. It wasn't until 2006 that Phillip Rivers, after 2 years on the bench, sitting, learning, and watching Drew Brees play, actually got his chance to become the unquestioned starter. And then you go to Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, drafted 24th overall in 2005. He sat behind Brett Favre for 3 years. It wasn't until Aaron Rodgers' 4th year in the league in 2008 that he was actually given the keys to the car, so to speak, and given the opportunity to be the starting quarterback. So that's 2 years of sitting and waiting for Phillip Rivers and 3 years of sitting and waiting for Aaron Rodgers, and clearly it didn't hurt either one of them. But then you also look at quarterbacks that were taken high, taken in round 1, that started as rookies, and the results have been very good for those organizations for the most part. Andrew Luck obviously was a day 1 starter, and the Colts have made the playoffs 2 straight years. Cam Newton was a starter from day 1, and the Panthers haven't looked back. Matthew Stafford was a day 1 starter. Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco, both from that 2008 class, they were both day 1 starters and both took their teams to the playoffs as rookies. Big Ben back in 2004, after a game or 2 of the Tommy Maddox experience, they went to Big Ben, and he ended up going I think it was 13-0 or something, 14-0 as a starter, and led the Steelers to the AFC Championship game. So you can make a case based off of this evidence that it's better to sit a guy as a rookie. But then you could also make a better argument that if the guy has the talent and the skill sets, maybe it's just better to throw him into the fire. No better way to learn is by trial and error and making mistakes and correcting them and learning from them, because a lot of these guys that started as rookies in recent years had some good success and a good track record. But then on the flip side of that, you have some quarterbacks that did sit as rookies and they didn't pan out. They were just flat out bust. You look at J.P. Losman, the number 22 overall pick for the Buffalo Bills in 2004. He sat his rookie year behind Drew Bledsoe. Jamarcus Russell, the #1 overall pick in 2007. He sat pretty much the entire season behind McCown and freaking Dante Culpepper. Brady Quinn in 2007 and for a good portion of 2008 sat behind Derek Anderson on the depth chart for the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback position. Did sitting and waiting and watching and learning from other guys and having other veterans play in front of them really help them? Probably not. I would think not. And then you look at other young quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round that played as rookies right away. Guys like Vince Young, after a couple of games, he was given the keys to the car. And at one point in time in the rookie season, the Titans won, like, I think it was 6 straight games. They almost made the playoffs. But look where Vince Young is now. Look at Mark Sanchez. He started like 15 games as a rookie. Where's he at now? He's backing up in Philadelphia. You look at Blaine Gabbert. He started like 13 games in 2011 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And where is Blaine Gabbert now? Backing up Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco. Gabbert was such a huge, colossal, disastrous flop that 3 years after being the number 10 overall draft choice by the Jaguars, he was traded to the 49ers for a 6th round pick. So I think this whole thing of saying, well, you know, it's better for a quarterback to sit right away or it's better for a quarterback to start right away, I don't think that necessarily tells the whole story, because I think in part it depends on the situation, it depends on the player, it depends on who you have in front of them, what type of talent you have in terms of a supporting cast around them. I don't think it's a simple answer, a simple equation that everybody automatically knows the answer to, because there is evidence that goes in all different directions. In some cases, it's better to sit as a rookie. Sometimes it's better to start as a rookie. Even some guys that sit as a rookie, it never works out. Some guys that played as a rookie, it ultimately didn't work out long term. Did sitting as a rookie really help J.P. Losman? Not particularly. Did it help Jamarcus Russell or Brady Quinn? Hell no. And in the case of Brady Quinn in particular, I think it ended up hurting him, because it took 1.5 years for him to even get the chance to be a starter in Cleveland. And by that time, they were already moving away from him before they had ever even really given him a full chance to succeed. Before they had even given him a full chance to establish himself as that franchise guy. And this is where I think, again, each organization has to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I do say this, is that if you were in a position to take a quarterback in round #1, there is probably a good reason for that. And more likely than not, you don't have a better alternative on your roster, because if you did have a better alternative on your roster, you probably wouldn't have taken the quarterback in round #1. Let's be realistic. Looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars, you know, Gus Bradley, David Caldwell said Blake Bortles is their guy. They couldn't risk him not being there for him if they traded down, so they had to take him #3 overall. But they're looking at sitting him in 2014. Their plan is to sit him the entire year behind Chad Henne. Why? What is that going to accomplish? If you felt that Blake Bortles wasn't ready to go in 2014, was he really the right quarterback for you to choose? Was he really the right guy for you long term? Is Chad Henne really that much of a better alternative as opposed to a Blake Bortles? What is wrong with going into the camp and sitting there and saying, we intend for Chad Henne to be the starter, but Blake Bortles is going to compete, and if Blake Bortles is the better option, then by God, that's what we're going to do. That's what the Seahawks did in 2012. Everybody assumed that Matt Flynn was going to be the guy, and he was going to be the starter. They paid him decent money in the offseason as a free agent. They drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. You know, Matt Flynn was the intended starter, but by God, it became clear by the end of the regular season, end of the preseason, beginning of the regular season, that Russell Wilson may indeed be the better option. The Seahawks ended up started him, and they haven't looked back since. 2 straight playoff appearances. Oh, by the way, Super Bowl champions this past season. If you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, you were picking 3rd overall for a reason, in large part because Blaine Gabbert failed. You might sit there and say, well, Blaine Gabbert was thrown into the mix as a rookie, but that was just a poor job of evaluating a quarterback. He was terrible, period, coming out of Missouri. He had no business being a 1st-round pick. So whether or not he sat or started as a rookie really had no bearing on anything. He didn't have it. He just sucked. Same thing with a guy like a Jamarcus Russell. He just didn't have it. He sucked. Would starting him right away made any fucking difference? No, it probably wouldn't have. I mean, that's the truth. Would sitting for Mark Sanchez really have made it any better for him in New York with the Jets? No, because the dumb dicks there would continue to draft defensive players every year in the 1st round, never helping their young franchise quarterback that they gave so much up for to go get. You look at guys like Manziel and Bridgewater. I have no problem with the Browns and the Vikings not wanting to crown their asses. I have no problems with them saying they're going to start here on the depth chart and they're going to have to work their way up and they're going to have to prove it. What's wrong with that? The only thing that would be wrong with that is if Manziel and or Bridgewater both establish themselves for the Browns and Vikings respectively to be the best option and the best for the team to go with in 2014, and then they didn't do it because they were rookies. The league has changed. Quarterbacks as rookies can come in and have major impacts. Look at Andrew Luck. Look at RG3. Look at guys like Andy Dalton. Yeah, you can sit there and say what you want about him, but he was a starter from day one as a second-round pick. Russell Wilson had huge impact as a rookie starter. Big Ben, Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco. The precedent is there. A rookie quarterback in today's NFL can come in and contribute and be a good player. Cam Newton, like I talked about. These guys can succeed and succeed early. And I argue that unless you truly, clearly have a better option in year one, you're doing yourself a disservice as an organization, both short-term and long-term, if you don't start that rookie quarterback, especially if they are in the position where they have earned that spot and they may very well be the best option for you. I find it very hard to believe at this point that Teddy Bridgewater would not end up being the best option compared to Matt Castle and Christian Ponder sometime in 2014. The reason that you drafted Bridgewater is because Castle is a holdover guy and Ponder didn't work out. And if you're the Cleveland Browns, the reason you drafted Johnny Manziel in the first round is because you really didn't have any other answers there. And the closest thing you have to some type of answer is a Brian Hoyer, who isn't exactly a world beater, even though he flashed some stuff in 2013. But he's coming off of an ACL injury. And as far as the Jaguars, you might not want to sit there and repeat the Blaine Gabbert mistake, but then why take the similar type Blaine Gabbert type prospect in Blake Bortles? At some point in time, you have to roll with these guys. You have to give them the opportunity to succeed. And I find it very hard to believe that it makes any sense for the Jacksonville Jaguars to sit there and sit Blake Bortles for all of 2014, and that instantly is going to make him so much better for it long term. It didn't help J.P. Losman. It didn't help Jamarcus Russell. It didn't help Brady Quinn. And that's a fact. If a guy can play, a guy can play. If a guy can't play, a guy can't play. It'll be very interesting to see what these organizations do with the rookie quarterbacks that they took in round number one. But I will say I don't think the answer is as cut and dry as a lot of football people and a lot of media people will make it out to be. There is evidence that says it's better to sit, but there's also evidence that it's better to start him right away.